Well, that change is coming. But I got some news for us. It depends on us, right? Wasn't it Gandhi who said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world"? We have to do that. It's interesting. Martin Luther King Jr. got that message very, very early. He was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. And he started running from a young age. He was raised in Atlanta. And then before he even finished high school, he was accepted into Morehouse College. And in 4 years, he just received his degree. And in that same time, 1944 to 1948, he was invited to, he was licensed to preach at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, which was where his father was senior minister. So he started preaching at age 18. Didn't stop there. He went on and got a doctorate in as a systematic theologian at Boston University School of Theology. But there were some events in his life that really guided his path to even a greater purpose than just being that beautiful Baptist minister and preacher to change the world. But in those same 5 years when he was getting his doctorate and doing all this, he married Coretta Scott, and they had not in 5 years, but they had 4 beautiful children. It wasn't all those in 5 years, but he married her, and that was wonderful. And he was invited to be the 20th pastor of, I can't remember the name of the church there, the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And those were really, really, really life-changing things for him. But even more importantly, at that same time, something happened with a 42-year-old woman named Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was a seamstress, a black seamstress, at the Montgomery Fair department store. And one day, December 1st, 1955, she got on the bus tired after a long, long day's work, and she sat down. And a white man came on the bus and refused to sit next to her in the empty seat. And the bus driver told her, because of the Jim Crow law in Alabama, that she had to surrender her seat. And she said no. Can you imagine that courage to say, no, I'm not going to give up my seat. There's a seat right here you can sit in. And how resounding that no was. It shook awake a whole bunch of people that were going to say no a lot more. We're not going to let this happen anymore. It woke Martin Luther King Jr. up. He went on to organize the Montgomery, which is where he was, the Montgomery bus boycott. He was truly inspired by Gandhi's work of nonviolent demonstrations and resistance, nonviolent resistance. And he organized, and it was the first successful demonstration in the U.S. on segregation. Wow, it inspired him that much. And my question for us right now, when our world seems to be so divided, what are you willing to have the courage to say no to? It can be no just in that reading you were giving, Barbara, this morning. No, stop the gossip. No, I'm not going to argue about that. No, I won't. No. And what you're saying for the things that matter is you're saying yes to something greater. You're saying yes to a bigger vision. Yes, Martin Luther King had a vision, and we need one too. He had a dream of something bigger in his life, and we need that also. He went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 at the age 35, the youngest person to ever get a Nobel Peace Prize at that time. He knew he only had a short time. He was assassinated at the age of 39, but look how he changed the world. We're still here because we still have work to do. We're the ones that get to do and be the change in the world right now. We get to decide what our part is because each of us has a sacred calling of how we're supposed to make the world better, spread the love, be the ones that can bring people together instead of tearing them apart. There's a wonderful spiritual teacher, ecumenical Christian mystic right now who's globally recognized for his work, Father Richard Rohr. And he is a Catholic priest of the Franciscan order, but boy, is he stretching the boundaries. He's breaking outside the box of the Catholic Church. And he likes being a Catholic, but he doesn't want to follow some of the old, outdated rules that no longer fit in the consciousness of a growing society. Ernest Holmes, the founder and teacher and mentor and creator of our faith, says we have to be open at the top, continually widening the circle. I hope you're understanding where I'm going with it. I want us to be stretching our minds, our hearts today, that we can say, where am I willing to widen my circle? For some reason, I don't know why, we seem to be afraid of people and life when we don't understand it or when people are different than we are. Right? Do you know what I mean? We're afraid. We don't know. We don't understand. People think differently. They have to be wrong. But can I tell you something? There is not a single unbiased person in this room. We all come from our own experiences, our own cultural histories, whatever it is, and we come with biases. What we need to do is be aware of ourselves, aware we're prejudging things and making decisions without making the connections to understand at a deeper level. Do you get sort of what I'm talking about a little bit? Just a tiny bit? That's why we have this day right now. A day where we celebrate one of the beautiful beings on our wall. People who were not afraid to say no to the status quo because they wanted a better life. They wanted something more and something deeper. Well, Father Richard Rohr in Albuquerque, New Mexico, has started a Center for Action and Contemplation. And he's definitely one that wants deep connections, and he wants to use that transformative power of love to change the world for the better. He says that every single person in the whole world has a sacred purpose. To get to that sacred purpose, you need to have contemplation. It is in silence where we find God, creativity, where we find goodness. It's there. And so he, in his center, really focuses on quiet contemplation, to find spirit, to connect with that, we might call it the divine urge, the sacred spark within us, and listen to it so it can guide and direct us, so we know where we're going and what our part is to play in this ever-evolving world. And then he said, okay, so you have the contemplation, that's not enough. You find God, that's not enough. You got to do your part. So he says, and this is what he says at his center, he said, and then action is making a decisive commitment in your mind and heart to the activities of understanding, acceptance, and cooperation in the transforming work of love. You know, when we, in our teaching, we always say that God is love, the self-givingness of spirit, to give us free will, to give us all that we need to create a life worth living, all of that. God is love. And we are born out of love because God is all there is. We have to be that same thing. So, as Matthew Fox has told us so many times, we are the original blessing because inherent good is within us. The core of us is love. We just have to take some things away. It's not something we have to add. We have to start letting go of things to let our true self be shown. So how are you and I going to stop being so afraid of things and people. Well, let me tell you, you know that beautiful 13th century mystic poet, you know his name. You do, but I'll tell you, for those of you either first-time people or those who have forgotten if I haven't said it enough, Rumi says, whenever we can manage to love without expectations, calculations, negotiations, we are indeed in heaven. That's what we need to do. You know, Ernest Holmes said, never lower yourself to hate. And Martin Luther King said, never succumb. Never succumb to the temptation of becoming bitter. He said, love is the most durable power there is. It is the highest goodness. Those who love know God, and those who hate don't. That's as simple as he said it. So that's what all of the mystics and teachers and prophets tell us. We have to expand the love in our hearts, but we're still afraid. Now, I'm going to tell you something. We get to know God by loving ourselves, loving one another, and then finally loving everybody. That's not so easy. You know, what happens? If you're going to say, I love everybody, does that mean everybody that you meet is going to be wonderful and nice and kind? No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, I didn't put this tape on right this morning. My fault. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean everybody in your family is going to love you and say yes to you. No. Your children are going to be perfect. No. What does it mean? What does it mean to love everybody? It means you have love in your heart. It doesn't mean you're not going to find tragedy or hurt in your life. It means you're going to have peace of mind and purity in heart, of heart. And wasn't it Jesus who said, blessed are those who are pure of heart, for they know God. So loving everyone simply means we have a better inside, that we can deal with the outside things in life and know a greater truth. It goes on. You know, we can say, okay, I'm going to do it. How many, you all do it? I'm going to love everybody, right? Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to take 3 steps ahead and then 2 behind. Because it's a process, you know. We fall back to our old ways, and that's the time we get to see, oh, that's where my filters are. That's where my buttons are. That's where the problem is. I had the most beautiful experience this week. I love how God shows up in such amazing ways. Kirk and I, usually Fridays are kind of an open day for us, and you know, we don't plan on working, but what comes up, comes up. And we're going to practice love letters with Ron. We were meeting our director, Ron Sarno, here at 1:30, and I didn't realize that the teens would be leaving right at that same time. Didn't realize that. So I drove up, and there they all are with their bags. Well, first of all, took me back to my days of teen camp. And Martine runs up and said, Sandy, you're here, and we're just getting ready to leave. Will you give us a blessing? And I said, oh, yes. We got in this large circle. And I was overwhelmed at what we've done, what we've created here at this center. You know, I took a little group of maybe 3 or 4 kids up to camp, and we drive, and I'll get to that in a minute. We had this big group. I held their hands, and I was vibrating with God bumps. I was just like this. I was like, oh my. I realized that it went back to my days of being a teen, and how whatever path you're on, you can, if you're aware, you can come to something so wonderful. So I had each of the teens share what they were going to get from this week, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I was so blessed. And we said a prayer, and I was just vibrating with that goodness, and I realized that our daughter was so instrumental in creating all of this, and you are also instrumental in supporting it. And I realized that you're going to have to suffer through something with me. I must have sung at least 357 times the song, I Love Myself the Way I Am. As we drove in the car up to camp and back. We didn't have all the technology you guys have now. This was a zillion years ago. And I realized that that song that these kids sing, and I am going to check with Adam and see if they're still singing it now. I don't know. They should be. It tells us everything we need to know. So I'm going to ask James and Gretchen to come up, and Kirk. And if you know the song, I want you to sing along. But this is a song, why I said I'm dedicating this to our kids. I want you to dedicate this song right now, not only to the teens and the kids that stand here to see this is how they're growing up and what they're singing, but to all the children out in the world. If they don't know who they are, we're singing this to them, and it's called I Love Myself the Way I Am. And I have more here.
All right, please join us. The lyrics are right there. I love myself the way I am. There's nothing I need to change. I'll always be the perfect me. There's nothing to rearrange. I'm beautiful and capable of being the best me I can. And I love myself just the way I am. I love you the way you are. There's nothing you need to do. When I feel the love inside of me, it's easy to love you. Behind your fears, your rage and tears, I see a shining star. And I love you just the way you are. I love the world the way it is, 'cause I can clearly see that all the things I've done by people just like me. So till the birth of peace on earth that only love can bring, I'll help it grow by loving everything. Come on, sing out. I love myself the way I am, and still I want to grow. But change outside can only come when deep inside I know I'm beautiful and capable of being the best me I can. And I love myself just the way I am. I love myself and you just the way I am.
Thank you. That was for me. It brought me back a long way, and it reminded me of how lucky our kids are to have a beautiful community that can support, steps ahead, steps behind, but support this beautiful process. I love myself the way I am, with all my capabilities and imperfections, the entire package. How beautiful it is. So if we're going to be doing this thing of spreading the love, it's about being in the flow. And my wonderful mystic friend also said, if you want to be more alive, love is the truest health. And I feel that love is being in the flow of life. not getting too rigid, too hung up on things, too attached, but being in the flow. We call it the divine dance. It's about taking time, which is the contemplation, for the impouring of Spirit, and then doing our action, which is the outpouring of Spirit. It reminds me of the poem by Hafez, the 14th century Sufi mystic, who said, "Every child knows God, not the word, not the God of names, not the God of don'ts, not the God who says, not the God who ever does anything weird, but the God who only knows 4 words and keeps repeating them. Come dance with me. Come dance. Come be a part of this life. Join me in the process. Be here. We can do this together. I don't care if you step on my feet. I don't care if you stumble. I'll help you up. I'll guide your light. I'll guide your light." It was Jesus who said, "You are the light of the world." And Ernest Holmes said, "We are the candle of God." It is our responsibility to keep our wick trimmed, our focus clear, wick trimmed and ignited in the pure oil of Spirit. The light of God. How beautiful. Desmond Tutu, another beautiful civil rights activist in South Africa, Archbishop, now 88 years old, said, "We are only the light bulbs. Our job is to stay plugged in. Plugged into Spirit." I told you the practitioner in training class has gotten a little mantra. Pause, plug in, proceed. Our mantra. Keeping ourselves in line with Spirit. Right there. In a 1958 essay that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, An Experiment in Love, he talked about his focus being agape love. Of course, in the Greek language, there's many words for love: eros, the philia love, and the agape love. Agape love, as Martin Luther King defines it, is God's love for humanity. It is a love that has no attachments, that is selfless, that thinks of the other before themselves. It is the way that God works through the human heart. So today, in closing, I want you to think of that love in your heart, knowing that we are the change. What can we do right now? Something that we can say no to in our lives, and something we can say yes to. And yes, as I said, Martin Luther King had a dream. We can say yes to a dream too, which is peace on earth, a world that works for everyone. And so what I want to do now is, as we close, we're going to sing the peace song, which we haven't done for a while, which is again a song from teen camp, so children being our dedication today. We'll sing the peace song. And I want you each to think of something. There are so many places in our world right now that need our prayers. Prayers make miracles. Prayers change things for the better. We need to be praying for the goodness and sending our good energy around the world. We can send it right now to our country that is standing in division. We can send it to the Middle East, all the countries there, Iran, Iraq, all the countries, Afghanistan, in the Middle East, and beyond and beyond and beyond. We can send it to South America, Central America, Canada, Australia, and the fires. We can send it all over the world. Whatever place calls to you, feel that in your heart as we come together. Take that word, and when you have your word, I'm going to invite you to stand. No, this isn't time to do this, is this? Uh-oh. I just messed up the entire service, and I apologize. So just say with me, and so it is. Know that I love you all. I see the highest and best for each one of you right here and right now. Why didn't you come stop me, you little stinker? He's sitting back there going like this, and I'm like, okay, and so it is. I love you all. For all our joys and happiness and all our frailties and problems we have, we can always find a solution. And so it is.